So good evening and welcome back to Watchdog News. This is Jared Campbell. So this evening we're going to continue to talk about Russia and Ukraine. Ceasefire hopes amid escalations. Putin's frontline visit, encirclement battles, and U.S.-Russia tensions. So the Russia-Ukraine war continues to escalate as diplomatic efforts intensify to secure a ceasefire. Russian President Putin has made a high-profile visit to the front line of the Kursk region, reaffirming his commitment to the ongoing military operations. Meanwhile, Russian and North Korean forces are reportedly on the brink of encircling Ukrainian troops and the town of Sudzha. In a major development, the United States has brokered a 30-day ceasefire proposal that Ukraine has already accepted, shifting the diplomatic burden onto Moscow. President Donald Trump has also issued a stark warning, threatening severe economic sanctions against Russia if it rejects the peace deal. European leaders have expressed cautious optimism, supporting negotiations while maintaining pressure on Russia. In a separate but significant event, tensions have flared following a North Sea collision between a Russian captained cargo vessel and a U.S. military tanker, an incident now under investigation by British authorities. With global leaders engaged in high-stake diplomacy, the future of the conflict still hangs in the balance. Let's talk about Putin's frontline visit and the Kursk offensive. So I'm going to share the screen over. There's some pretty good pictures of what Putin looked like today. So let's share the screen over and take a look, right? So Putin was in some battle fatigues. So Putin in camouflage uniform in the Kursk region. The prisoners of war are terrorists. Man, doesn't sound good, does it? So on March 12th, Russian President Putin made an unannounced visit to the Kursk region. Dressed in full military uniform, addressing his commanders, Putin praised the Russian forces for recent advancements, particularly in the town of Sudzha, right? He ordered troops to press ahead and liberate all of the Kursk region, signaling continued offensives in the region. In a controversial move, Putin declared that Ukrainian prisoners would be treated as terrorists rather than conventional POWs. This statement has drawn international condemnation, with human rights groups warning that such a stance could lead to mistreatment of Ukrainian soldiers. The Ukrainian government swiftly responded, calling Putin's remarks a blatant violation of international law. Additionally, Putin proposed the establishment of a security zone in Ukraine's Sumy region, just beyond the Russian border. This move suggests Moscow is seeking to permanently prevent Ukrainian forces from launching further cross-border excursions into Russian-held territory. So I'm going to share the screen back over, and we're going to look at an updated map, right, of Sudzha, right? The battle that's going on. You'll see a little arrow on the map, right? So let's talk about the encirclement of Ukrainian troops in Sudzha. As Putin reinforced his military mission in the Kursk region, reports indicate that Russian and North Korean forces are close to encircling Ukrainian troops in Sudzha pocket. Ukraine has seized parts of the Kursk region, including Sudzha, in a surprise cross-border offensive back in August 2024. Now, Russian forces are closing in on thousands of Ukrainian soldiers, cutting off supply routes and surrounding key positions. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev boasted that the lid of the cauldron is nearly shut, suggesting a complete encirclement is now imminent. Russian military bloggers also claim that special forces even used an abandoned gas line pipeline to flank Ukrainian positions, intensifying pressure on Kiev's defenders. Wow. Despite Russian claims of raising their flags in central Sudzha, Ukrainian military officials insist that their forces are repositioning strategically and are not at risk of immediate encirclement. Okay. Ukrainian Armed Forces Chief Alexander Syrsky stated, there is no risk of entrapment, and confirmed that reinforcements are being deployed to stabilize the front. The reported involvement of North Korean personnel fighting alongside Russian troops has alarmed international observers. If confirmed, This would mark a deepening military alliance between Moscow and North Korea, potentially violating United Nations sanctions. While North Korea has not officially acknowledged sending troops, Western officials are monitoring the situation closely. I talked about this back during the summer, right? I think that North Koreans have been there for a while, okay? So ceasefire proposal. Ukraine agrees. Russia's response, unclear. Amid the escalating conflict, diplomatic negotiations have opened a window for potential ceasefire. Following extensive discussions in Saudi Arabia, Ukraine has agreed to the U.S. proposed 30-day truce. Ukrainian President Zelensky views the pause as an opportunity to lay the groundwork for broader peace talks. The Kremlin, however, has yet to respond definitely. Russian officials have stated that they are renewing the proposal, but hinted that any ceasefire agreement must recognize the recent territorial gains. While Moscow has not outright rejected the deal, analysts suggest that Putin may be unwilling to halt military operations while Russia holds the upper hand in the Kursk region. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump has dispatched diplomats to Moscow to push for Russian participation in the ceasefire. He also has made it clear that failure to engage in the negotiations could result in crippling economic sanctions against Russia. These are things I can do that would not be financially pleasant for Russia. Trump warned. Direct statement from Trump, President Trump. The proposal marks a crucial test for the war for both sides. If Russia agrees, it would be a first coordinated ceasefire since the war's escalation in 2024. However, if Moscow refuses, it could signal an intent to press ahead with further military offensives. Let's talk about Trump's ultimatum and resumption of U.S. military aid. Wow. So President Trump has tied the ceasefire effort to a dual strategy: diplomacy, deterrence. While the U.S. is advocating for negotiations, Washington has also resumed military aid and intelligence sharing with Ukraine. This reverses a previous freeze in the aid that had strained U.S.-Ukraine relations. Trump's warning of devastating economic consequences for Russia underscores his administration's attempt to pressure Putin into compliance. Basically what's happening. Potential sanctions could target Russia oil revenues, major banks, and even foreign entities assisting Moscow's war effort. Despite these threats, Trump has insisted that his main objective is peace. We hope for a ceasefire, but we are prepared for all outcomes. He stated, signaling that the U.S. is ready to escalate economic measures if Moscow refuses to negotiate. European leaders call for unity amid ceasefire talks. The EU, European leaders have cautiously welcomed the ceasefire proposal, emphasizing the need for a just and lasting peace. European Council President Antonio Costa and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen issued a joint statement saying the ball is now in Russia's court. Interesting. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer described the agreement between Ukraine and the U.S. as a significant amount and urged all sides to seize the opportunity for peace. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and the French President Emmanuel Macron echoed similar sentiments, though they stressed that any ceasefire must respect Ukraine's sovereignty. NATO officials have also expressed measured support, warning that any truce must not allow Russia to regroup and launch fresh offensives. Well, if anybody agrees to a 30-day ceasefire, both sides will have time to regroup, 30 days of rest. So both sides will be regrouping, right? And looking at different ways, different strategies. So 30-day ceasefire, everybody, it's going to happen. Meanwhile, Eastern European nations, particularly Poland and the Baltic states, have voiced skepticism over Russia's intentions, calling for continued military support for Ukraine. Let's talk about that North Sea collision, rising tensions between Russia and the West. And so this is an unrelated but geopolitically charged incident, okay? Tensions that flared over a maritime collision in the North Sea. On March 10th, right, a Russian captained cargo ship crashed into a U.S. military tanker off the coast of England, It was carrying jet fuel for the U.S. military and suffered significant damage, prompting environmental concerns. British authorities have arrested the Russian captain, citing gross negligence. The incident is under investigation, with officials examining whether mechanical failure, human error, or even deliberate interference played a role. While there is no evidence of foul play at this stage, the event has added to already heightened U.S.-Russia tensions. I bet it has. The Kremlin has remained largely silent on the matter, while Washington has demanded full transparency in the investigation. With security concerns growing over Russian maritime activity, NATO allies have increased naval patrols in the North Sea. So I'm going to close out for this evening, try to keep these short and sweet. So here's my conclusion. A critical moment for war and diplomacy, as military operations continue to intensify on the ground. The prospect of a ceasefire presents a pivotal moment for the war's trajectory. The coming days will determine whether diplomacy prevails or if the conflict enters an even bloodier phase. If Russia agrees to ceasefire, it could mark the first significant step towards de-escalation. However, if Moscow refuses or delays its response, the likelihood of further escalation remains high, with Putin reinforcing his frontline positions and Trump raising the economic stakes. The outcome of these negotiations will shape not only the battlefield, but also the global geopolitical dynamics. Meanwhile, European leaders continue to push for a unified approach, and the fallout from the North Sea collision could further complicate international relations. As all sides weigh their next moves, the world watches closely to see whether the war will shift from military confrontations to a very serious peace negotiations. That's all I have. This is Jared Campbell with Watchdog News. For continued updates, please stay informed with our latest reports on global conflicts and diplomacy. Always stay prepared, stay watchful, stay vigilant. I love you all so much. This is Jared Campbell with Watchdog News. I hope you enjoyed tonight's report. All right. Tonight's report came out of around 51, I think it's 51, 52 sources that I looked into. And I turned this into a report. So I studied over 50 sources this evening. So thank you all again. It's Watchdog News. Love you all so much. Have a very, very, very blessed evening. See, check out our time. Look at that. Good stuff. Good stuff. I hope you're all learning more and more about what's going on in Ukraine with my updates. Okay? That's kind of the point, is to keep all of you updated. No matter on what topic I decide to do, my job is to keep you informed on that topic. Right? Russia, Ukraine is very important. Some people say it's not. They're crazy. Because American soldiers can very easily end up on the soil of Ukraine. Right? That's why we're watching it closely. That's all I have. Jared Campbell with Watchdog News. Have a very blessed evening. I'm signing off for this evening. Out.